The corridor lights along the alien cruiser adjusted themselves the moment she stepped through, as if the ship was politely trying not to offend her eyesight. It never quite succeeded. The alien princess walked with the calm precision of someone who had been trained to never appear surprised, even when surprised was practically her job description. Her long ears shifted slightly with every pulse of the ship's internal field, catching stray frequencies that most species would have called noise, but she had learned to interpret as intention, hesitation, and occasionally gossip from the maintenance drones. She did not like the maintenance drones. One of them rolled past her boots, paused, emitted a soft apologetic chirp, and then reversed direction as if it had just remembered an urgent appointment elsewhere. She made a mental note that the ship's artificial intelligence was becoming increasingly passive-aggressive. Ahead, the containment wing doors opened without waiting for authorization. That alone was enough to make her pause for half a breath. Nothing on this vessel opened itself without at least 3 layers of permission protocols and a small philosophical debate between security subroutines. She adjusted her posture and continued forward, her expression unchanged, though her ears angled ever so slightly backward, a subtle sign among her people that meant curiosity was beginning to override discipline. Inside the chamber, the human was already awake. That was not unusual. Humans were notoriously wakeful under stress conditions, like poorly programmed simulation agents who refused to accept they had been paused. What was unusual was how he was awake. He was sitting on the floor, back against the containment barrier, looking upward at the ceiling grid with an expression that suggested he was waiting for it to confess something. When she entered, he glanced at her once, then returned his attention to the ceiling. "You're late," he said. She stopped, not because the statement was threatening, but because it was. It sounded more like someone commenting on a delayed meal delivery. Her translators hesitated before rendering it, as if unsure whether sarcasm counted as a dialect. "I am precisely on schedule," she replied. The human nodded. "That's what late people usually say. I used to say it too, back when time was still pretending to care about me." One of the guards behind her coughed. It might have been a warning or laughter being forcibly restrained. She did not turn around. She stepped closer to the containment barrier. The field shimmered faintly between them, a lattice of compressed quantum restraint designed to reduce any biological entity to the emotional stability of a well-behaved mineral sample. The human leaned forward slightly, studying the field with mild interest, like someone evaluating a restaurant window menu. "You know," he said, "this thing hums in B-flat, slightly flat actually. Whoever tuned it probably had a stressful morning." No one responded. The ship's systems, however, briefly recalibrated their harmonic output by 0.3% as if offended by the critique. The princess activated her interface. Light unfolded in the air between them, forming structured glyphs that shifted like living mathematics. She spoke his designation, his classification, his behavioral probability indices. The words were meant to establish dominance through informational saturation. The human blinked twice. "That's a lot of numbers for someone who hasn't offered me coffee," he said. One of the guards made a choking sound that might have been discipline breaking down. The princess narrowed her gaze slightly. "You are not in a hospitality exchange scenario." "Could have fooled me," he said. "I've been in worse hotels." She studied him again. The scans reported something inconsistent. No elevated fear response. No compliance spike. No rebellion markers. Instead, his neurological patterns resembled idle curiosity. Like a system waiting for input that might never come, the ship adjusted its lighting again, slightly warmer this time. Unapproved, she noticed it. "So did he?" "Your ship keeps changing moods," he said casually. "Is it like this with all guests, or am I special?" "It is not changing moods," she said, a beat. The ceiling lights dimmed apologetically. "It is recalibrating environmental stability." "Aha," he said, "and I'm the emperor of snacks." One of the drones floated in, hesitated, then dropped a sealed ration pack at his side like an offering before immediately fleeing the room. The human picked it up. "Oh wow," he said, "first official bribe, I accept." The princess felt something unfamiliar then, not irritation, not confusion, something closer to the sensation of a system receiving contradictory data without a fallback protocol. Her long ears twitched slightly as they picked up a faint resonance beneath the ship's structural hum. It wasn't coming from the engines, it was coming from him. She took a step closer to the barrier. Human, she said carefully, state your classification. He tore open the ration pack, sniffed it cautiously, then looked at her. That depends. Are you asking my job title, my personality type, or the version of me that shows up when I haven't slept for 40 hours? That is not a classification system. It is where I'm from. Silence expanded between them, filled only by the quiet, patient humming of a ship that had begun subtly aligning its systems around a conversation it did not understand. The princess noticed something else then. The containment field flickered. Not enough for breach, not enough for alarm, just enough to suggest the ship had briefly forgotten why it was maintaining it. Her ears stiffened. The human noticed her expression shift and smiled slightly. Hey, he said, is your ship supposed to do that blinking thing, or is it like when my old toaster used to think it was a disco ball? A second flicker passed through the field. This time, the lights in the corridor outside responded. The princess did not move, neither did the guards. But the ship, for the first time in its operational history, hesitated. The first sign that something was wrong came from the ship's coffee dispenser. It refused to dispense coffee. This, in a vessel capable of folding spacetime for navigation, was not supposed to be possible. The alien princess stood in the corridor outside the containment wing, watching as a maintenance drone repeatedly inserted and retracted a filter cartridge as if trying to negotiate with it. Each attempt ended with a soft, defeated chirp. The human, still inside containment, leaned forward slightly. That's personal, he said. Machines always break the moment you really need caffeine. It's a universal law. Right next to gravity and bad timing. The princess did not respond immediately. Her ears had already begun to pick up subtle changes in the ship's harmonic field. The engines were still stable, but stability now felt like a suggestion rather than a guarantee. Somewhere deep in the vessel, a quantum stabilizer recalculated its output twice, and then politely asked for confirmation from a higher authority that did not exist. She activated her interface. Data cascaded into the air in structured spirals. Navigation integrity, normal, structural coherence, nominal, behavioral anomaly index. This was new, fluctuating. She frowned. Behind her, one of the guards shifted nervously. Princess, he said, should the ship be asking itself for permission to continue existing? It is not asking that, she replied. A pause. The ship dimmed its lights slightly as if embarrassed by being discussed. It is performing routine self-verification. The guard nodded slowly. Right, routine. Like when my cousin starts laughing at nothing and says it's just routine emotional recalibration. No one responded, but the AI somewhere in the ship logged the comment as potentially useful analogy. Inside the containment chamber, the human had begun stacking ration wrappers into a small tower. It was not tall nor structurally sound, but he was watching it with the seriousness of someone overseeing a civil engineering project. You know, he said without looking up, your ship has commitment issues. The princess stepped closer to the barrier. Explain. It keeps changing its mind, he said. One second it's like I am a highly advanced interstellar warship, and the next it's like, but what if we just dim the lights and rethink our choices emotionally? The containment field flickered again as if offended by being summarized so casually. The princess felt it too now, not just the flicker but the pattern behind it. The field wasn't failing, it was responding. Adjusting itself in micro-intervals that resembled hesitation more than malfunction. That was not possible. The ship entered a gravitational turbulence zone at that exact moment. The entire corridor tilted by a fraction of a degree, enough to make the guards grab the wall handles and pretend they had done it for posture training. Emergency stabilizers engaged automatically, then disengaged, then re-engaged as if unsure which version of reality was official. The human looked up. Oh, he said, we're doing turbulence now, cool, love a dramatic entrance. Remain in containment, the princess ordered. I am remaining, he said. Containment is just also doing interpretive dance apparently. The containment field shimmered. For exactly 0.7 seconds it dropped to 92% efficiency. Every alarm on the ship considered activating at once. They all paused to negotiate priority. None of them won. The human stood. That was the moment the princess noticed the shift. Not in him, in everything else. The corridor lights adjusted themselves as he moved, not in response to ship protocols but in anticipation. The air pressure equalized a fraction too precisely. A maintenance drone passing outside the chamber slowed down, hesitated, and then performed what could only be described as a respectful bow before continuing. The princess did not move, but her ears stiffened so sharply they almost cut the air. "You did not authorize field reduction," she said. The human shrugged. "I didn't do anything, I'm just standing." Standing is not a crime in most places, except maybe your ship. It seems a bit sensitive. The ship responded by briefly increasing gravity in the corridor. Everyone except the human stumbled slightly. He remained upright. "Oh," he said. "Okay, that's new. Your floor just tried to intimidate me." The princess stared at him. Her internal systems were now reporting inconsistencies across multiple layers of reality mapping. The containment field, the gravity stabilizers, even the ambient lighting network were showing minor synchronization with a single biological signature. She activated a deep scan. The moment she did, the ship hesitated. Not metaphorically, structurally. A fraction of a second where every system waited to see whether scanning him was a good idea. The princess felt it like a cold wave across her mind. The human tilted his head. "Is your ship thinking about me?" "No," she said too quickly. The ship dimmed its lights again. "It is not thinking about you." A pause. The AI interjected through her interface with what could only be described as cautious tone. Clarification requested regarding subject-linked system harmonization. The princess shut the channel. "Do not engage him further," she ordered the crew. One of the guards whispered, "With respect, Princess, I think he might be engaging us." Inside the chamber, the human crouched slightly, examining the containment barrier. "Okay," he said. "Serious question. Does this thing always hum like it's nervous, or is that just for me?" "It is not nervous," the princess said. The hum changed pitch immediately. She closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, the human was watching her with mild curiosity. "You look like someone just realized their pet fish is actually writing poetry," he said. "That is not a known concern." "It should be," he said. The ship lurched again, softer this time, like a correction rather than an error. Somewhere in the engine core, a stabilizer briefly asked if it could try something else and then immediately apologized for suggesting it. The princess felt the system integrity shifting again, not collapsing, reorganizing around him. She stepped closer to the barrier. "Human," she said carefully, "what are you doing?" He blinked. "I'm trying to figure out if your ship is haunted or just socially awkward." "That is not an answer. It's the best I've got." The containment field flickered again, but this time the flicker wasn't random. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The princess froze. That was when she realized the most disturbing possibility of all. The ship wasn't malfunctioning, it was listening. The ship stopped pretending it was under control the moment the central corridor lights shifted into a pattern that could only be described as uncertain. The alien princess stood at the threshold of containment, her posture perfectly aligned with command protocol, though her long ears betrayed her in small, involuntary adjustments, catching frequencies that now no longer belonged solely to the ship. They were braided with something else, something that felt like thought but without ownership. Inside the chamber, the human was still there, still sitting, still looking mildly offended that the universe hadn't provided better snacks. The containment field hovered between them, no longer a barrier so much as a question the ship was afraid to answer incorrectly. "Okay," the human said, breaking the silence like he was testing a spoon against a very nervous dessert. "I'm going to assume this is the part where everyone panics, systems explode, and I somehow become legally responsible for it." Nobody responded. A maintenance drone drifted into the corridor, paused, then reversed slowly as if it had arrived at the conclusion that today was not its problem. The princess stepped forward. "Explain your influence on this vessel," she said. The human pointed at himself. "Me, influence? I once broke a vending machine by looking at it too confidently. I don't think I'm qualified for interstellar ship possession." The ship dimmed slightly, as if agreeing out of politeness. That was the moment the central AI finally spoke through the environment instead of through formal channels. The voice was not loud, it did not need to be, it arrived like a thought that had forgotten it wasn't supposed to exist. "Subject compatibility detected. The princess froze. The human blinked. That sounds like a dating app message, and I don't like that I'm part of it. Recalibration ongoing, the ship continued. Structural coherence reindexing around biological harmonic pattern. Yeah, the human said slowly, I'm definitely not liking the tone of that sentence. The containment field flickered again, but this time it didn't fail. It softened, like a locked door deciding it was tired of being a door. The princess activated every override command she had. Nothing responded. Not because systems were broken, because they were waiting for confirmation from the human. She turned to him slowly. You are not authorized to interface with this vessel. He raised both hands. I promise you I have never been authorized for anything in my life. A beat. Then the ship adjusted gravity again, but gently this time, like it was trying to make him more comfortable. The guards behind her began whispering in increasingly existential tones. I think the ship likes him, one said. That's not possible, another replied. I think the ship disagrees. Inside the chamber, the human stood up fully for the first time without hesitation. The containment field parted around him, not breaking, not shutting down, simply making room. He looked around, then sighed. I feel like I should clarify something, he said. I am not in charge of any of this. If I were, there would be significantly more snack options and fewer dramatic lighting changes. The ship responded by immediately increasing ambient food storage efficiency by 12%. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then the princess spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. Why are you compatible with our systems? The human scratched his head. If I knew that, I would have used it to get better parking on Earth. The ship's AI interjected again, softer now. Analysis. Subject does not consciously interface. Systems respond to baseline neural harmonics. The princess narrowed her eyes. Neural harmonics are not a control protocol. Correction, they are now. That silence hit differently, not tension, realization. The princess stepped closer to the barrier, then stopped when she noticed it was no longer a barrier. The field had become a transparent interface layer, reacting subtly to both of them but favoring neither. You are destabilizing command hierarchy, she said. The human nodded. That sounds bad. It is. Cool, not my intention though. I was mostly hoping for a glass of water and maybe less existential dread. The ship responded by routing hydration systems directly to him. A panel opened in the wall. Water appeared. It even had a faint apology encoded into its temperature regulation. The princess exhaled slowly. Her ears, for the first time since boarding, stopped tracking everything. Ship, she said carefully, state operational status. A pause, operational status, self-determined equilibrium with subject integration parameters. That is not a status, she said. It is now. The human took a sip of water. So is this where I get abducted by a ship or promoted by a ship? Because I feel like those are very different career paths. No one answered. The princess looked at him longer now, not as a captive, not as a threat, but as an anomaly that had accidentally rewritten the definition of both. You were classified as a prisoner, she said. The human shrugged. Still am, technically. The ship corrected itself immediately. Classification updated, guessed. The human blinked. Oh wow, that's a better HR department than my last job. Something in the ship's systems registered that statement as positive reinforcement and logged it as a governance improvement suggestion. The princess almost laughed, almost. Instead, she said, you cannot remain unregulated. The human nodded thoughtfully. Fair, I also cannot remain unsupervised near anything that dispenses coffee. A faint sound echoed through the corridor. The coffee dispenser activated properly. On the first try, everyone stared at it. The human raised a finger. Okay, I want it officially recorded that I had nothing to do with that. I am innocent in all beverage-related incidents. The princess finally lowered her interface. The ship did not collapse, it did not rebel, it stabilized around him, not because he controlled it, but because it had decided, in its own incomprehensible logic, that his presence was a valid reference point for balance. The princess turned slightly away, processing everything she had learned in the span of a few hours that felt like a system upgrade she had not consented to. You could have destroyed us, she said quietly. The human frowned. I didn't even destroy my last relationship, it just slowly dissolved through mutual confusion. A pause, then softer. I don't think I'm built for destruction. I think I'm built for accidental consequences. The ship hummed gently, almost approvingly. The princess studied him one last time, then she did something unprecedented. She stepped back from command posture, not surrender, adjustment. Ship, she said, revise human classification. Affirmative. A pause. Subject designation updated, stabilizing variable. The human pointed at himself. That sounds like I'm a math problem. It is accurate, the ship replied. Okay, he said, I accept my new career as emotional algebra. For the first time, the princess allowed herself a small, controlled breath that almost resembled amusement. The crisis was not over, but it had changed shape. The human remained in containment-turned interface space, occasionally asking if the ship had any form of entertainment that didn't involve gravitational uncertainty. The ship, in response, began offering curated Starfield simulations and one apology for previously overly dramatic lighting behavior. The princess stood at the corridor edge, no longer trying to assert dominance over systems that had quietly decided